Hello, City Skylines fans. I'm Sockswayup, and welcome back to Newman Shore, a Vanilla Plus playthrough of City Skylines. We got a few mods enabled. Last episode, we did some large expansion to enable us to unlock the tile that we're looking at right now. I have some plans with a couple industries in this area. We're going to fill up that, or finish filling up, the lake that we've created here in this sandy area. If you're playing on this map or planning on playing on this map, I would recommend doing ore in that area instead of water like I'm doing. But since the second I saw this map, I really wanted to turn that into a lake. So here we're starting off by adding the extra water outlets to give us the ability to fill up the lake that we are creating. So you can see we've already got a few of them laid down. Now we're trying to add the water pipes into this area, and then we'll have to add electricity as well. One of the things that I also wanted to do was terraform. So I wanted to lower the bottom of this lake to allow more water to settle in. That seems to be the easiest way to create custom water features in City Skylines. So we use the flattening tool and find an area that already has a good amount of water in it and then make everything the same level as that. That should eventually cause this entire lake area to fill up with water, especially with the new water outlets that we added to help subsidize the extra water that's needed. Though the canal seems to be doing a pretty good job itself once we get this leveled out, and we're gonna figure out, do we want those to be canals or do I want it to be a natural river once we get all of those tiles unlocked? And now we do, so maybe next episode we'll tackle that and make this look a little more clean leading into the new water source that we've created. So there's a few areas here we're just doing some fine touches, just finishing off some areas that we've missed, and then we noticed that the electricity isn't completely working. This is the first time I've used natural disasters in City Skylines, so I'm learning along the way. I thought that they didn't need electricity at first, and then I saw that the water was coming out, so I was like, perfect. Then water stopped coming out of them because they do need electricity, so we wire up those power lines and get it all going and get it set up. It was a little tricky to figure out the right path to put the power lines at first. We transitioned into starting our ore industry. So the first thing that I usually do in City Skylines when I don't have things unlocked yet, I'll zone the industry area where I plan on having it long term. We'll put the main building down and all of the other buildings that we have unlocked at that point and let the game just kind of roll through some cycles to get us to level 2. At level 2, we'll then add some more buildings to make sure we can extract as much as possible, make sure we have enough jobs, kind of cycle through that until we get to level 5. And then I start over by redesigning the long-term plan that I have for the industry area. And that's what we're going to kind of walk through here. You can see we're putting down a bunch of the extractor buildings, just trying to get as many resources extracted as possible to get that number as high as we can get it, as quickly as we can get it, to get to that level 5, unlock all of the buildings, because some of the ones that you want to design with are probably going to be unlocked at like level 4 or level 5, depending on what you're looking to do. So that's what we're doing here. You can see we already have enough workers, just got to wait for the resources to get extracted and processed, and we'll be solid. We'll be on level 2 and rinse and repeat until we get to level 5. And there we go, level 2. We got that unlocked, and we'll make sure we have enough resources laid down and just expand a little bit as we go. You can see plenty of workers, just enough actually, 7 over the minimum. So right now we're gonna move all the processing plants, the grinding mills, the ore grinding mills, and we're gonna move them over away from the extractor buildings so we can add a few more of those to speed up the amount of resources we're popping out to just move this along so we can get to the finalized build. And speeding things up along, there's level 3. Let's move on to level 4. Magical. Level 4 done. Now the long grind of getting all of the resources we need from 4,500 produced resources to 13,500. That's going to be quite a grind. And one of the small things that we did to kind of help that out was we made sure all these policies were enabled. They'll just produce the goods a little bit faster to get us to where we're trying to get to. But we should probably find something else to do while we wait for the game to catch up and produce all these resources. So next we cut out a small piece of land to add a little bit more residential. We're gonna finally connect to this roundabout we made a while back and give a final destination for the top end of it and sneak in a good amount of houses in this little area here. You can see we're kind of fighting with lining it up perfectly of how we want it to connect to the roundabout. Finally get it in place, turns out pretty nice. And then we're gonna start designing just the road structure of this neighborhood in here and get a lot of residents in. You can see we're at 37,000 right now. The next milestone is 48,000. That's a lot to fit in. We do not have a lot of land to play with. We used a good amount of it for the airport and some of the industries that we put into the game. So it's a little bit of a struggle at this point, and you can kind of see we're just adding in more roads for low density. We could easily have just jumped and built some large high density areas. I'm not a fan of that. I think it kind of ruins your traffic for the most part, and it also doesn't make the game feel natural to me. It doesn't make the city feel natural when you just shove a bunch of high density buildings in an area just to get the population up. So we're gonna grind away. We're probably gonna have to play around with making sure the land value is as high as possible to get the buildings to level up all the way. Pay attention to education a little bit. Just make sure the whole city is happy in general to get all the buildings to level up so we can get the maximum amount of people in town, and hopefully we don't run into another gridlock situation like we had earlier in the series. So we're just finalizing a little bit of this area, trying to go with an organic road layout, but then also maximize the space that we're using to make sure that we can fit as many citizens as possible, or as many houses as possible into this area. We also are going to extend this existing district so it picks up the policies in place for the type of buildings that we wanted in there. I really like the way these self-sufficient buildings look, and it's fitting really nice into this part of the city. So we're going to keep that going as well. Get this entire area zoned up and let it populate, but we'll probably have to add a few more things into the city to get that residential demand to spike up. Adding in these industries was part of that, but it's not going to completely take care of it for us. We'll get there. So the residential demand was too low for the neighborhood to start populating, so we decided to add in a few commercial areas here, and we're going to just kind of tie into some areas that we already pre-planned to add commercial to, or I did in my head at least. Make it kind of natural to just keep progressing while we're waiting for the game to allow us to finalize the design of our ore industry. So we're just bouncing between getting industries up and running and getting up to level 5, and then building in some offices and as well as commercial. This area is going to be commercial. Kind of get those demands to even out. We've been struggling to have a high residential demand for a while. Got to get some other things in here. Again, vanilla Cities Skylines, you can't really tweak the way the game wants you to put down different types of buildings, so we have to play that. We have to play it that way. So we're gonna keep pushing on and overpopulate the amount of commercial buildings that we have. Like, yeah, at least in my opinion, it's overpopulated. This area, we're gonna add in some offices as well. So we start zoning it prior to moving the cemetery. I'm emptying it right now so that I can then move it to another area. But I definitely want this area to be a little office complex that's right close to the freeway there. I think that'll look pretty sweet once it's all populated and leveled up as well. It's not gonna be really skyscrapers or anything, so it won't really ruin the vibe on this side of town. I think it'll work out pretty nice. So we've been messing around for a while, doing some, adding in some buildings, some commercials, some offices, some residential. We're finally there. We hit level 5. We unlocked everything. We can now design this thing up the way we want to long term. So we're going to jump right into that right away here. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to level some of the ground. We're going to create what's going to look like a quarry. I've done this in other episodes as well, or other series. We're going to give it another shot and see if we can do it better than we did last time, even though we don't have mods at our disposal, or at least the mods that would be nice to help in this one. So the first thing I'm doing is trying to find the bottom point that we want, and making sure it's also within the radius of all of the ore that we have left to pull from. So that's what we're going to start off by doing. You can see we're just kind of slowly dealing with the fact that there's not enough dirt, there's too much dirt, we got to sell it, we got to buy it. But I don't know if it's just me. I actually find it kind of relaxing to do terraforming in Cities Skylines, and kind of wish I would take that approach a little bit more. And I did this time around. I didn't just settle for doing it quickly just to get a video popped out. I took my time, and I think it turned out real nice. And once we get one level down, we also add 3 levels to this, and then I lay the roads down as well. As you can see, we jumped ahead a little bit. And then after the roads are completely laid down, we terraform a little bit more to pull the dirt all the way to the layer, or the same spot that the road is on, and you'll see that in a little bit. And here we're using the slope tool to allow the road to cleanly get down to that bottom level where we will have one of the extractor buildings in there. Just a pretty fun thing. Just got to find ways to enjoy this game after playing it a ton of times, and I still do. I still love it. I still find that every time we design one of these, it looks completely different, and the cities look different because the areas are just unique. And I love the fact that there's a ton of maps that we can play on. So here you can see we are putting that first layer of the roads down. We're going to put that together, make a nice little loop, eventually get all the way down to the bottom, try to find the right size for the building we're going to put in here. Unfortunately, we couldn't fit the largest building. And honestly, I think the one that we picked looks a little bit better after I finally, came to the conclusion that the space would just been too large for that huge extractor building. So we get that going. You can kind of see to the left what it did look like. We'll show it in the end of the video a lot closer. But here what we're doing is we're developing an area for all of the processing buildings to fit in and have a separate area outside of the extractor buildings. And what I did on this one is I decided to keep moving the buildings around and really hug the roads up to them to make the design the way I wanted it to be. And so instead of just putting a road layout and then putting some buildings in there and filling the space, I decided to constantly redesign the road layout until I got it the way I wanted. Just again, trying to take my time and make it look better and finalized instead of it just looking like it was thrown together quickly to get the job done and get the industry up and running, which is how I played when I first started playing Cities Skylines. Not so much anymore. As we fill in a few more of these processing buildings, we're doing the same. And luckily this one fit perfect. It just snugged right in there. I thought that was fine. And then we sneak this one over again, just a hair, and readjust the roads. Again, another example of what we're doing to kind of finalize and get this looking like it was intended and it was all designed together at the same time. I'm loving the approach. It's really helping it turn out a lot nicer, I think, in the long run for what I've designed in the past. Jumping ahead a little bit, we add some of these storage buildings, even though they don't function correctly. I don't care what anyone says. They do not function correctly in Cities Skylines, and it drives me nuts every time I try to use them. Play around with all the different settings. It seems like balanced always keeps it full, and these buildings don't get the ore that they need. I could rant about this forever, but we fit them in there because it looks nice, and I think it looked good. And I like the way it looked, and get this other processing building right in the middle of it. It came out pretty nice. I like the way it all goes together, and they're two separate areas for their own unique job that is part of this entire industry together. So over here, we're kind of taking a look. There's just not trucks really being able to pick up the resources. So we add a few more roads and electricity in as well. And that helps kind of send the signal that there are buildings that need the ore. And then the trucks start flowing in and out a lot faster after that. So here's the final look of the processing area. We did zone it a little bit of the extractor buildings and of the generic vanilla Cities Skylines industry ore buildings, just using the policies to get that to dictate to use the right buildings. And here's a look at our little quarry. I populated it with a bunch of buildings and a bunch of the extractor buildings, and then outlined it with some rocks. I think it turned out pretty neat. It doesn't really take away from the rest of the city. Even though that pollution does, we've disabled the mod that deactivates that just to keep it a little more vanilla. But yeah, this Newman Shores turned out pretty sweet. I can't wait to get to this fishing industry in the next video and push for more population into the town and see where it goes once we get to 9 tiles and all of them unlocked and have a completed city. I'm excited about it. I hope you're enjoying it. I'm Sockswayup, and I'll catch you on the next one.